In this video we're going to do a tour of my games room. This is something that I built up a really long time, but haven't been in so much lately because we've needed some repair work done on the house. But now it's all fixed and I thought I might as well show it off in a video. So we got the main bit here. This is the shelf with all the games on it, and then I'll do a little rotation. Majority of the rest is posters. And there we go. So as you can see, the walls are pretty hectic. I've built up a lot of stuff over the years, and my general rule of thumb is if it fits the vibe, it goes up on the wall. So I've had a lot of fun finding random stuff to put up on here, and built it up over the years, and it's got to this point. Hopefully I'll get some more on the walls at some point as I build up more and more things, but this is what I got so far. It's not all posters, it's random stuff like a CD and a floppy disk, or some albums, why not? Surfing with the Alien and All-Star. So I have a lot of fun with this, and it's just a bit silly, but it fits the vibe of the room, so I like it. Anyway, I'll go on to the game shelf, which is the main bit. This goes pretty much chronologically, but also by system. So I start with Atari, which is the oldest ones that I have. I've only got one boxed game for Atari, and that's Pitfall, and it probably is my favorite as well. But yeah, there's some other random games in there. I did buy... I don't know exactly where it is, but I did buy E.T. There it is, because I had to have it. But yeah, it's actually a pretty good game. Next, moving on, we've got NES games. Going chronologically again, and I've got a few there. None are boxed, unfortunately. You'll probably notice at this point, a lot of my games come from the PAL region. That's because I'm Australian, and they run a bit differently to the US ones. So I do have a few Japanese games here. I've got Ys on the Famicom and Dr. Mario there. And when we get to the consoles, you'll see I do have quite a few US games. It's just all these ones are for the PAL region. I tend to get US ones because they're better for speed running, because running at 60 frames a second is a lot faster than running at 50. So here's my Super Nintendo games here. Just a few random sports ones. These came with the console. And I've got a random Puyo Puyo game there. I do have a collection of Australian Super Nintendo games, but they're not on display here. And this is really just a subset of the games. These are the ones that are worth having out. Moving on next, I've got N64, so you've got all your, Banjo Tooies or Diddy Kong Racings. I have quite a few of the Japanese ones here, but also several PAL cartridges sitting underneath there. Probably my favorite bit of the N64 collection here is my Banjo games. So I have a Banjo-Kazooie from every region that it was released. So down the bottom there, Australian, that was the one I grew up with. Then we have the European one, then the US one, and then the Japanese one. So I got the US one for speedrunning, but I just thought it would be nice to have a big collection because Banjo is probably my favorite game, so it's nice to have all of them. Moving on, we've got our Segas up next. So we start off with the Master System, and in the part of Australia that I'm from, the Master System was a bit more popular. So I grew up with the Master System, but only really found out about the NES as a teenager. So here's the boxed Master System games. Probably a big highlight of those for me is Sonic 1, although it's pretty standard Sega game, it's actually really good. The other standouts are the Wonder Boy series, like an action RPG series, they're pretty good. Land of Illusion is another good one. Yeah, there's lots of good games in here. Even something like the Ninja is a short experience, but it's like pretty good, pretty difficult. And Lord of the Sword is an absolutely fantastic game to have in here as well. So very, very good games on the Master System and a lot of hidden gems. I got my unboxed Master System games sitting in here, but it's a bit hard to tell what they are without pulling them out. Alright, so moving on, we have Genesis, or Mega Drive, where I'm from. So I've got my... There we go. I've got my boxed game collection there. And then the unboxed game collection after that. So a couple of really good ones in here. The Dragon is really good. Megalomania is fantastic. Quackshot is really good. Randomly, I've got Quackshot and Battletoads in here, which is some like hybrid thing that they made, and the Battletoads doesn't seem that official on it. It's kind of bizarre. Anyway, then we've got PS1. So yeah, these are all the PS1 games. I did get a PS1 off of somebody who didn't want it anymore, and they had a lot of really random games. They had a few burnt ones because it was a chipped PS1, but I tend to collect the proper ones instead. Then we got PS2, and I grew up with PS2, so there's a lot of games here and a lot that I'm very familiar with. Then we got all the handheld stuff. So I was really onto Pokemon back in the day and got all the trainer stars and did the national decks and everything. But not so much these days. Don't have the time for it as much. And then PS4. I do have a lot of Switch games as well, but they're not on display here. They're in a different room. But yeah, I do keep the PS4 ones in here. So yeah, that's the game shelf. Moving on, I've got all my peripherals and whatnot. So controllers in these top two drawers. I keep mainly N64 in the left drawer here. The reason being because I have so many of them, having speedrun N64 before, and like I try and make sure the sticks are in really good condition, which they pretty much are. I have a few which have GameCube style sticks like this, and they just clicky rather than smushy. These ones play better, but the GameCube style sticks last longer, so it depends what you're after with your controllers. But yeah, really particular about N64 controllers, and then I've got my sort of 8 and 16-bit console controllers. Here's some Master System ones back here, just like that. And then I've got Genesis, mainly 6-button controllers in here, plus a few random ones that the speedrunners recommend. Then I've got NES and SNES sitting up the back there, and just random Game Boy SP, because why not? It's probably a good fun thing to highlight the difference between, I guess, that's a US SNES controller, and then this is an Australian one on the left here. The US has the purple buttons and Australia has the colored buttons, but the US buttons are like concave and convex, like they go out and then in, whereas the Australian buttons, they all go out, so there's no like little dimple bit in there. Just a little fun difference between the two. Alright, then I've got these, which are mainly like PS2 and Xbox controllers sitting in here. PS2 controllers seem to break a lot, at least I find, so that's why I've got so many. Just keep having to replace them. Next up, we've got just random games. These ones weren't good enough to be displayed on the shelf either because they were scratched or because I've got duplicate copies. For example, like with the Guitar Hero on PS2, it's much better on Xbox 360, so I've got the Xbox 360 stuff out. Whereas, like, I grew up with it on PS2, so that's why I've got it in there. But a lot of these games are scratched and don't run anymore, or just didn't want them on the shelf for whatever reason. And I've got a few boxed GBA games in there too. And a Super Famicom, because why not? Fun story about this Super Famicom. I tried to repair the reset button because it was broken, but when I pulled it apart, I accidentally broke the color. So yeah, I don't pull apart too many consoles since that's happened. And then these are just miscellaneous chords. I try and be organized as much as I can. For example, all these are AV two-ways, and it's this huge bag of AV chords, just because I want them all in one spot. And then down the very bottom, we've got the miscellaneous consoles. So in here is that PS1 that I was talking about before. Up the back, we've got a Mega Drive, or a Genesis for the US viewers. Mega Drive again here, and a Master System sitting underneath. And then a couple of Master Systems down the bottom there, as well as, you know, GameCube, another Master System, Super Nintendo down the bottom. That one's a PAL Super Nintendo, and then Xbox 360 and a PS2. So yeah, these aren't in use at the moment. I'll tend to use the NTSC consoles where I can, but they're in storage, ready for access when I need them. Some stuff like the GameCube I could put in use, but I have a Wii anyway, which is out. Alright, so this is the main area where a lot of the consoles live, and these things double up as micro USB cables, so they're good chargers and lights. I've got the US Sega Genesis here, so yeah, this will run at 60 frames per second rather than 50, which is obviously way better for speedrunning any Sega games. Same story here with the US Super Nintendo. It looks a bit different to the Australian one. We got the US Nintendo 64, actually that's Japanese N64 there, and the PS4. I find the PS4 really useful, not as much for playing games, but I want something up on the TV there. I can put Netflix or whatever on the PS4. One thing is, I don't actually keep any of these plugged in at all permanently, just because it's far too much mess. So I used to have these whole big systems with splitters and big setups and everything to make sure everything was plugged in. But in the end, I just decided it wasn't worth it, and it's a lot more effective to get out the cords as you need them. But I have them bundled up and ready to go, so as soon as I want to play, it's just like plug, and then turn it on. So it's actually a pretty good setup. Here I got my CRT versus the more modern TV. Difference is, modern TV, you're going to get a clearer picture, whereas a CRT is better for your older video games. So stuff like dithering looks a lot better on CRTs, and some of the old pixel art looks really good. But the main reason that I have it is for the input lag. So this TV is going to take a long time to process your image. Between when you press the button and you see it, you get a bit of a delay, whereas this one is instant. So yeah, CRT is much better for retro gaming, especially speedrunning. So that was all my NTSC consoles there, and down here live some of my miscellaneous PAL consoles that are still in use. So I've got the PAL NES here, which lives just there. And then just sitting on top, I've got the Atari 2600. We saw those games before. I've got the Xbox 360 that's in use, as well as a PS2, which is in use down here. You've also got just this random thing that plays arcade games, and the cords for all those consoles sitting underneath. So you can see I bundle up. For example, that's just everything I need to play the SNES, sorry. So it's pretty easy to get it set up when I need to. But yeah, that's pretty much all that I wanted to show here. I'm pretty happy to be able to show it off, and hopefully we'll keep building this up, getting more games, getting more posters, and most importantly, having a good time in the room.